Every time I post a PC build video on the channel, I get like 10 to 20% of the comments asking like, Vimal bro, can you make like a step-by-step detailed tutorial on how to build a PC from scratch? No, I'm not talking about the regular components installation. That too anyhow I keep showing only in my PC build videos. People are asking me to show like a detailed step-by-step tutorial on how to connect all the wirings, cables of all the components and like a detailed tutorial. Now if you people remember, couple of years ago I've made like a detailed tutorial, but it's 2024, right? High time I made like a new version of this video because there's a lot of changes happening in the PC world tech, guys. New platform, new gen hardware, new CPUs, everything has changed. So it's about time we actually made like a new edition of this step-by-step tutorial guide, and that is what I'll be doing in this video. It's gonna be a very interesting video. You people know, right? I've built like hundreds of gaming PCs in the past couple of years on our channel, so I'll be sharing complete experience and also lots of useful information, and I'll give you some tips and tricks also on how to build your brand new PC, because there are a lot of beginners out there who are willing to build their first PC at your home only. So this video can be very useful for you. And apart from that, first question you might actually get before building a PC is how to choose the right components. Now I've made a separate video on this also, this topic also. You'll find that on my channel. Anyways, in this video I'll give you like a brief idea on how to select your components. So selecting your components can totally depend on your requirement and budget. Say if you are having a tight budget, maybe you're planning to build a gaming PC of around 50,000 or 60,000 rupees in 2024. Obviously I'll suggest you to go for like a new gen hardware only, maybe like AMD's Ryzen 7000 series platform. You can go for something like a Ryzen 5 7600 paired with their Radeon 7600, or even like a 6600 if you're tight on a budget, something combination like that. No, if you're looking for like a top of the line gaming PC or maybe like a creator PC edition, right, then you can go for their AMD's Ryzen 9 7950X CPU. That is like a Godzilla CPU, guys, multi-threaded monster, 16 cores, 32 threads. It can easily handle any sort of application. Apart from that, they also have like a special 3DV cache variant CPUs as well. If you're planning for like excellent no compromise gaming PCs, right, there you can go for that. Now what are these 3DV cache variant CPUs? If you people do not know, 3DV cache variant CPUs have like huge amount of cache, guys, almost like 140 to 144 depending on the CPU variant, and they offer like massive gaming performance improvement compared to your regular CPUs. There is a detailed video on this topic also on our channel. You'll have to watch all these informative videos, guys. On that note, make sure to like this video, subscribe and click the notifications bell icon on so you can stay up to date with all of these informations and stuff. If you look at the GPU side also, now there are plenty of options starting from Radeon 6600, 7600 to all the way up to their most powerful Radeon 7900 XT and XTX edition with up to 24 gigs of GDDR6 memory made for like no compromise 4K gaming. So today in this video, out of all this selection, right, we will be building like an exclusive gaming PC powered by Ryzen 9 7900 X3D CPU paired with Radeon RX 7900 XT with up to 20 gigs of VRAM, guys. So that is the basic configuration we'll be going for. It's an excellent 4K gaming PC, and not just the building process, I'll even show you the performance and benchmarks as well in this video. It's gonna be like a to Z tutorial video, guys. And before we get started, I'd like to give a big thank you to AMD for sponsoring this video. Now let's get started with the actual build process. Building a PC is very simple, guys. You don't need to worry about anything. Just watch my video till the end and you'll only be able to build your PC without anybody's help. So before we get started, now there are a couple of things you'll need to get ready. First of all, get like a flat tabletop surface or any sort of platform where you can actually place all your components and get started with the build. Apart from that, you need like definitely ample amount of lighting because you don't want to make any sort of mistakes while connecting cables or stuff like that, right? Plus, you don't need much hardware also. A simple screwdriver, Phillips head screwdriver, is more than enough to get you done with your PC building. And the first step in building a PC is installing CPU on your motherboard. As I've told you, today for our PC build tutorial, I have chosen AMD's Ryzen 7900 X3D CPU. This is a monster gaming CPU, guys, with special 3DV cache technology. It features 12 cores, 24 threads with a max boost clock of up to 5.6 GHz and has a massive total cache L2 plus L3 combined of up to 140 MB. I totally forgot to talk about this thing. Now since we are building like an AM5 platform, right, obviously you'll need like a newer gen motherboard as well. Now there are plenty of motherboard chipset options to choose from. You get A620, B650 and also X670 edition is also there. Which one to go for? This is also very simple, no hassle. Totally depends on your requirement and budget. Say you're tight on a budget and you want to save a bit of money and you're looking only for like a fundamental basic motherboard. Here you can go for the A620 motherboard. This will get your job done. If you have a decent amount, maybe say a balanced amount of money, right, you can go for a mid-range variant which is B650. This is like a value for money and ideal chipset motherboard is what I can say. And finally you have X670 and E edition. E stands for Extreme Edition, guys. Say if you want to go for like a no compromise motherboard, you don't want to compromise on any sort of performance and you want to overclock your CPU to bring out the best potential out of it, then for you can obviously go for like X670 or the Extreme Edition. The only difference between the X670 and the Extreme Edition is Extreme Edition offers slightly more number of PCI 5.0 lanes. So this is basically like future proof for you. In future, if you upgrade to like a PCI 5.0 graphics card when it comes out, right, this Extreme Edition would be like readily compatible with that, whereas the X670 won't be ready for future, but right now it will get your job done. Okay, now getting back to the main build tutorial process, right? So installing a CPU is also very simple. First of all, guys, we're working on an AM5 platform, right? So this is how your brand new Ryzen 7000 series CPUs look like. One major thing I'll have to appreciate AMD over here is, unlike the previous gen CPUs, right, on the 7000 series CPUs, AMD has finally moved the gold contacts, basically the pins at the bottom of the CPU, from the CPU to the motherboard. Now this makes it like very convenient and actually quite comfortable building their PCs. Today for the tutorial guide, we have like an Asus ROG X670 Extreme Edition motherboard, guys, that offers like extreme overclocking capabilities as well. First of all, open the socket. There's a lever to the right side. Gently push down and release, and that's it. The metal bracket opens up and exposes the socket. Here's how the interior of the socket looks like. I've told you, right, AMD has finally moved the pins from the bottom of the CPU to the motherboard, making it much more easier for the installation part. And mind you, never put your hand on the CPU socket, guys. Very risky. There are chances that you might bend the pins and damage your motherboard, so make sure to keep this point in mind. About time we install the CPU, guys. Take your CPU and before dropping it into the socket, right, always check for the align and indication, guys. Check for this gold triangle mark on the CPU and align it with the gold triangle mark on the CPU socket as well. It is generally placed at the top left corner only, and once you align that, gently drop it on top of the socket. Now all you need to do is pull down the bracket and install the lever just like how it was before. And if you do it properly, right, this plastic top cover at the top side will automatically pop off just like this. And that's it. You're done with the installation of the CPU. First step is already done. Now moving on, second thing you'll need to install is your brand new DDR5 RAM, because this is an AM5 platform, right? Obviously it supports DDR5 RAM only, and today in the house we have a special RAM kit from Kingston. This is their Fury Renegade RGB RAM with up to 6400 MT per second. Very fast RAM. Installation of the RAM is also super simple. On the motherboard you see these slots over here. These are called your DIMM slots. So 90% of the motherboards feature 4 DIMM slots, and if you're basically going for like a 4-kit RAM setup, right, maybe like 128 GB or maybe 64 GB, you can easily fill up all the 4 slots in any order, nothing to worry about. But if you're going for a dual channel setup and you have 2 units of RAM, always install these RAM sticks in the primary slots of the motherboard. And if you're wondering which are the primary slots, every manual of the motherboard mentions which 2 slots are primary slots, indicated with an asterisk star mark. They're even mentioned on the motherboard also, just beside the DIMM slots. Have a look over here. That is how you'll get to know which are the primary slots. And before installing the RAM, make sure to check for the direction and alignment of the RAM as well. Basically check the notch at the center, and once you check that properly, then only install the RAM. Place the RAM on top of that and gently push it until it automatically latches up just like this. And as simple as that, guys, you'll be done with your RAM installation as well. And not to miss out, with the newer gen Ryzen 7000 series platform, you're also getting support for AMD Expo, which stands for Extended Profiles for Overclocking. Basically like one-click overclocking solution for your RAM, which you can easily access from your BIOS settings. We've installed the CPU and the RAM, right? Usually after this point, a lot of people get started with the storage and power supply section into the case. But what I usually do is I keep them for the last bit and first install the motherboard onto your case. case. Now today in this case we'll be using like a large size case only from Deepcool, so you can easily do the installation part. Always make sure to choose right components and right case, guys. If you go for like large size components and go for a mini case, right, you will not be able to do the installation properly, and some of them might not even fit in your case. So be very careful while choosing the proper case. Take your motherboard and start placing it in the cabinet, guys. Make sure that the holes of the cabinet match with the holes of the motherboard, and that is how you'll be able to install all your M4 screws over here. For this also, as I have told you, you only need like a single Phillips head screwdriver, nothing complicated, and all the screws will automatically come included with your PC case. So you don't need to buy anything separately over here. Take your screwdriver and start fixing these M4 Phillips head screws for your motherboard installation. Go in a zigzag pattern, and main thing is never over tighten your motherboard screws. I've seen plenty of cases where beginners or amateur people damage their brand new motherboards by over tightening the screws, guys. So stop when you feel that the screw is coming to an end, and don't apply extra pressure beyond that point. The third step in our PC building process involves installation of the cooler. Now there are different types of coolers. You get air coolers, liquid coolers, and custom DIY loops are also available depending on the CPU requirements. If you're going for like a mid-range build, maybe you're featuring Ryzen 5 7600 or even lower than that, right? You don't need like powerful liquid coolers or DIY loop cooling. No, that is not necessary only. You can even settle down for your stock cooler also. And installation of stock coolers is like super simple, guys. No complications only. But you know, that is not what I'll be doing in this video, because anybody can do it. Very simple. Today I'll actually show you how to install an AIO liquid cooler, guys. That too like a powerful 360mm one, because we are obviously going for like AMD's Ryzen 9 CPU, right? 7900 X3D variant. So obviously you'll need like decent amount of 360mm AIO cooler, and the one we'll be using is from ROG. It is their all new LC3 variant of the 360mm cooler. Features like RGB lighting as well. And installation of this cooler is also very simple. Today we'll be going for the AM5 platform. So based on that only, you get like different mounts included in the cooler setup also. So make sure you're selecting the right mounts before going for the installation process. So this is how the AMD's AM5 mount setup looks like. First of all, guys, on the motherboard, remove this basic standoff screws. This is only used for your stock cooler installation or air cooler installation. That is not what we'll be doing today. We have a separate mount that comes with your liquid cooler. So remove that and safely store it in your motherboard box so you don't lose that. Now open up your liquid cooler box and look for AM5 standoff screws. This is how they usually come with in all your AIO liquid coolers. You basically get like 4 different screws and also some plastic heads as well. And all you need to do is install these mounting standoff screws onto the bracket of the motherboard. Very simple to do that. Just follow my video step by step. Place this plastic bush on top of the standoff screws and simply install the standoff screws using your hand only. You don't need separate tools also. And that's it. Quarter part of your AIO liquid cooler installation is done. Now moving on, we'll need to get started with the actual radiator and liquid cooler, guys. So as I've told you, ours is a 360mm of the AIO cooler, right? You basically get like 3 120mm fans included. Simply install these 3 fans on top of the radiator, just like how I'm showing in the video. All the screws, all the tools, everything that you require for the installation come provided within the box of the component only. Use your screwdriver, Phillips head screwdriver, and start tightening all the fans onto the radiator. And now once you're done with the installation of the radiator, right, time to place the radiator and the cooler itself into your PC case. Now there are different positions where you can install your radiator, guys. You can do it top down mounted, front mounted as well, depending on the type of case you're going for. Today we will be doing it in a top down mounted position. Pump head basically sits on top of your CPU, and before installing this pump head, don't forget to install some thermal paste, guys. Little amount of quantity at the center of the CPU will get your job done. And in case if you're using a brand new cooler for the first time, right, some of them already come with a pre-applied layer of thermal paste, and in that case you don't need to apply again separately on the CPU. Once you're done with the thermal paste installation, place the pump head on top of the CPU just like this, and make sure that the standoff screws match with the holes on the bracket of the AIO pump head. And after that, take these thumb screws and start fixing the pump head. As simple as that. Tighten up all the 4 screws in a zigzag pattern, and that's it, guys. Full installation of cooler part is done. Now all that is left to do is cable connections of the AIO cooler. We'll talk about the cable connections of this AIO cooler at a later part in the video. First of all, let's get started with the other components installation as well. Now that we are done with the AIO cooler, let's get started with installing our storage drives. There are different type of storage devices, guys. You get like NVMe M.2 SSDs, you get your regular SATA SSDs, SSDs, and hard disks are also there, but I believe in 2024 very rarely people use hard disk. Everybody is going for like M.2 variant of the SSD or minimum SATA SSDs depending on your requirement. So today in this video I'll show you how to connect both the variants of the SSD. So first of all, let me show you how to install your M.2 NVMe drives. So this is how your NVMe drive looks like. Very slim and has like a wafer sort of profile, guys, and can be quite delicate, and installation of this is super simple. You can actually refer to your motherboard's manual to see which slot supports PCI Gen 3 and which slot supports PCI Gen 4, guys, and after that only install the drive in the proper slot. In our case, we will be installing this PCI 3.0 SSD in the top M.2 slot of the motherboard. So first of all, you'll need to remove the heatsink on the motherboard. That will expose the actual M.2 slot. Installation of the M.2 drive is also very simple, so you do not do this in a parallel position, guys. You'll need to install this NVMe M.2 drives at an inclined 45-degree angle. So take your drive and place it in a 45-degree angle and insert it into the slot just like how I'm showing in the video, and that's it. You'll definitely feel that it has firmly fixed into the slot. Gently push down the drive onto the heatsink, and you have a latch to the left side over here. Simply close that latch so it automatically locks the SSD in perfect place. Once you do that, right, put back the heatsink on top of the SSD and tighten up the screws. As simple as that, you're done with the installation of your M.2 NVMe drive. Now if you talk about the SATA SSD drives, right, these are even more simple. So every SATA drive has like two power connections that you'll need to connect. One is your SATA data cable and the other one is your SATA power cable. So SATA power cables directly come from your power supply, and this is how they look like. You'll need to connect these power supply cables to the SATA slot of your SSD just like this. Once you're done with the power supply cable, right, you'll need to connect the SATA data cable which goes from your SSD drive to the SATA slot on your motherboard. RAM done, cooler done, storage done. Time to move on to the graphics card. Installation of the graphic card is also very simple. Now we have like a massive size Radeon 7900 XT, right? So whenever you're buying these sort of premium and powerful graphic cards, right, make sure you buy a proper case that can actually accommodate this large graphic cards. If you buy like a small mini ITX or ITX sort of case and your graphic card doesn't fit in the case, right, it will become totally meaningless, guys. So make sure to keep these little points in your mind. Also, before getting started with the installation of the GPU, make sure to remove these GPU brackets from the case depending on the size of your GPU. If it's a 2.5 slot design, 2 slots will be enough, and if it's a massive 3 slot design, right, make sure to remove 3 of these brackets, because without removing these brackets your GPU won't sit properly in the case. Now take your graphic card and always install these graphic cards in the top PCI slot. Align the graphic card properly and gently drop it into the PCI slot. And once you do that, you'll definitely get like a clicking sound that will confirm that the graphic card has been properly installed onto the motherboard. Now that majority of building process is done, time to install power supply in your case. So power supply also comes in like different models. You get like semi-modular, modular, depending on the budget and also the model, guys. So today in the house we have like a fully modular power supply, and for this, right, you do not have cables attached automatically to the power supply. You will only need to attach them depending on your requirement. Look at this. This is how the back of the power supply basically looks like. There are plenty of ports over here and each of them has a marking, so basically it tells you which cable goes for which component, guys. Very easy to identify, nothing to worry about. So basically connect all the required cables to the power supply at the back profile, and once you do that, right, time to place this power supply within your PC case. And one point I can definitely tell is make sure that the fan of the power supply is always facing to the dust filter. Say suppose in your case if you have like a dust filter on the bottom side, right, place your motherboard in that direction only, such that the fan is facing the dust filter, and that will keep your power supply ventilated and keep it running cool. Once you do that, tighten up the power supply with the provided M4 screws in the packet. Now moving on, time to talk about the cable connection part. So as I've told you, get plenty of cables with the power supply, but very simple, guys. Everything is like organized in a proper step-by-step procedure. The first cable that you'll need to connect from the power supply to your PC is 24-pin motherboard cable. Very easy to identify. This is the largest cable you'll actually find in the bunch. Take this cable and make sure to connect it to the 24-pin socket on the motherboard. This is usually present just beside the RAM section, guys, DIMM slots. And also make sure to check the proper alignment, guys. Don't connect it in the opposite direction. It will only connect in one single direction. So before applying a lot of pressure, now just make sure to check the alignment and proper positioning, and after that gently press it into the socket and you'll automatically lock on and latch it into the system. The next cables we'll be connecting are CPU power cables. So depending on the configuration, right, you will either be connecting one CPU cable or two CPU cables. Basically these are 8-pin cables, and ours is like a very powerful build, right, and that too featuring like an extreme edition edition of the X670 motherboard, it requires two 8-pin power supplies, your main primary power supply along with an auxiliary CPU power supply as well. So you'll need to connect both of these 8-pin CPU cables to these top two sockets over here, which are present just above the VRM heatsink. And that's it, you're done with the CPU power cable installation as well. Now we'll need to connect the GPU power cables. Different GPUs have like different power requirements. Some of them only require like one 8-pin PCI cable, some of them require two. In the case over here, we are using like a very powerful 7900 XT edition of the Radeon GPU, right? This requires three 8-pin PCI cables. So make sure your power supply has three 8-pin power cables, or even if you don't have like three separate lines, you can even use like an auxiliary cable as well from the same line also. Nothing to worry about, you can definitely do that. So take these three PCI power connector cables for the GPU and install them one by one, just like how I am showing in the video. We are done with the major component cable connections part. All that is left are to connect your EIO cables and your cabinet's front panel IO cable. Very simple. First let me show you the EIO cables. Initially, by looking at these number of cables, you might get skeptical and scared, but let me tell you, all you need to connect are your fan cables, RGB cables and the pump head cable, guys. As simple as that. Within the cooler box itself, you get these sort of splitter cables, basically like 3-in-1 hub and solution. So you need to connect all of these three fan cables to a single cable, and from there you'll get like a one output, guys. First of all, take your 4-pin AIO pump cable that comes out from your pump head and connect it to the AIO 4-pin header on the motherboard. It is usually placed to the top right corner just beside the heatsink, as I'm showing in the video. Once you do that, connect the radiator fan cable. We got the splitter cable output, right? Simply connect that 4-pin cable to the CPU fan header on the motherboard, which is placed just beside the AIO pump head. And lastly, connect your 3-pin ARGB cable to these addressable ports on your motherboard, guys, indicated by this white bottom base. Also, some of these advanced coolers feature USB cable connection as well to control the RGB lighting, software and stuff. These USB cables go on the bottom side of the motherboard profile. You have like dedicated USB 2.0 ports. This is how they look like. Simply connect the cable, check for the alignment and push it gently into the socket. And this closes your AIO cooler installation. Moving over to your cabinet's front panel IO cable, this is how they look like. They're basically like 2-pin headers and they sit on your motherboard. Depending on your model, right, you get either 2 or 3. Totally depends on the case. Over here in our case, you get a power switch, reset switch and a power LED plus minus is also there. And some of your cases might also include HDD plus and minus. One thing you'll have to keep in mind is whenever you're connecting these LED cables, right, either for the power or HDD, you'll have to check for the polarity, basically a plus and minus, guys. Make sure you connect the power LED plus or minus to the appropriate plus and minus ports on the motherboard only. Without checking, do not blindly connect them. And mind you, if you're unable to read the markings, right, you can refer to the manual as well for a much detailed explanation showing a diagram as well how to connect these cables. And that's it, guys, our complete step-by-step tutorial on how to build a gaming PC at your home from scratch. Now all that is left is to boot it up, install Windows operating system, drivers and also get started with your applications and games. So what I'll do is I'll quickly power it on and show you how this gaming PC looks like. Plus, as I've told you, we'll also do a bit of benchmarks and gaming performance and see how this configuration performs. My god, that is one absolutely gorgeous looking build. I mean, just look at this beautiful PC shots. To give it a bit more character and vibe, I've set the whole RGB lighting of the PC to red color to match up with AMD's theme. Looks pretty cool, right? Plenty of air circulation and airflow as well. I mean, come on, we've got around like 7 fans running on the inside. What more can you expect? And also look at the interiors, guys. Beautiful RGB components, I'd say. So what I'll do is I'll quickly power it on, run some applications and show you how this thing performs in real world. So not just the gaming part, guys, I've also used it for a bit of creativity as well. Though one thing I do have to mention is if you're strictly building a PC especially for like production purpose or creative sort of applications, right, I would highly recommend you to go for the regular Ryzen series lineup. Maybe for like Ryzen 9 7900 or the top of the line Ryzen 9 7950X, which do not have like 3dV cache technology, because these sort of creative applications do not utilize huge amount of cache, guys. So it is basically waste. Anyhow, that doesn't mean that this gaming PC cannot be used for creative sort of applications. Yes, you can do that also. In fact, to show you people, I've tested both Photoshop as well as Premiere Pro as well for both photo editing and video editing, and it was running like really good on this system, guys. I mean, come on, it's a top of the line system. We are pairing Ryzen 9 7900 X3D, that too with like Radeon 7900 XT 20 gig variant with 32 GB of DDR5 RAM with up to 6400 MT per second. Nothing less you can expect over here. Muska sort of performance, guys. It is a great PC configuration, not just for gaming but even for creative sort of applications like photo editing and 4K video editing. To Muska, I mean, look at the timeline over here, guys. No sort of lag, nothing. Video editing, rendering, the whole workflow felt pretty smooth on this system. Finally, moving over to the gaming part, as I've told you guys, this is like a top of the line AMD configuration we've built. So I'll be doing only 4K gaming benchmarks, no 1080p, no 1440p, because I'm pretty sure it is very well capable of running these games. And that too, the first game we'll be testing out is Cyberpunk 2077. You people know, right? Cyberpunk is a very graphic intensive game, and if this configuration can actually run this game with smooth results and handle ray tracing and these sort of stuff, right, it can easily handle any other AAA title game, guys. Aram se. So in this first test, as you can see right now, we're playing the game at native 4K resolution and all the graphics has been set to like maximum ultra. Though one thing I do have to mention is in this first test, ray tracing and AMD's FSR technology are turned off. I want to show you the raw rasterization performance of this configuration. Okay, not bad, I would say. I mean, this is Cyberpunk 2077 we are playing, and that too at 4K maximum graphics. This was expected. On an average, we were getting around like 40 to 45 FPS, guys. Quite playable, I would say. If you play with the graphic settings a bit, maybe set to around like medium to high sort of results, right, you will easily get like a consistent 60 FPS at native 4K resolution. Now moving on, this is the main tester for this configuration. Can you play games on it with ray tracing? Now for this test, right, we will be enabling AMD's all new HyperRX technology that also includes AMD's FMF fluid motion frames. This was something like recently came out in the market, greatly improves your frame rates along with AMD's FSR 2.1 combined technology, guys. So quickly head over to the Radeon software, Adrenaline software, and from here go to the gaming performance section and enable HyperRX, one click all-in-one gaming boost performance solution, guys, and that's it. Now go to your game settings and enable AMD's Fidelity FX Super Resolution 2.1 and maybe set it to like auto or balance depending on your requirement, and now let's see how the system performs. Oh wow, are you people looking at the improvement in the results? Mind you, as I've told you, we're playing the game at 4K maximum ultra with ray tracing and still getting a consistent 55 to 60 FPS. Now that is what I'm talking about. AMD's FSR 2.1 combined with their fluid motion frames definitely seems to offer like pretty good results, I would say. If you disable ray tracing, you'll get even better results. Though again, that choice is up to you. I prefer playing Cyberpunk with obviously ray tracing, guys. I mean, it's a beautiful looking game, especially Night City. Quickly moving on to a second game, Starfield. You people know, right, Starfield is also a very graphic intensive game and definitely puts a lot of load on the CPU and GPU. In this first test, we are playing the game at 4K native resolution and all the graphics are set to like maximum ultra possible. And mind you, AMD's HyperRX technology plus FSR is also turned off in this clip. And on an average, we were getting around like 50 FPS, guys, in these sort of settings. And in certain graphic intensive scenes, it was even dropping to around like 45-48 FPS as well. Quickly enabling AMD's HyperRX technology with fluid motion frames. There you go, we can definitely see an improved performance in the frame rate. Now with these settings enabled, we were getting a consistent 58 to 60 FPS, guys. Smooth gaming experience at 4K native resolution in Starfield. Anyways, this is what I wanted to show you all in this video. As I've told you, this is not like a detailed benchmarks or performance of the card. We've already done that long back. Main objective of this video is step-by-step PC building guide. So that's it. I hope you all enjoyed watching this video and got lots of useful information. Make sure to like this video, subscribe, and do share your thoughts or any sort of feedback or suggestions you have in the comment section down below. And I'll see you all in my next one.